Welcome to HFY Galaxy Tales. Like this video and subscribe the channel for more HFY stories. Listen, I have witnessed approximately 4,312 species across 78 galaxies during my tenure as a protocol observer for the Galactic Federation. I have seen things that would make your neural pathways spontaneously combust. But nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, prepared me for the day I met Webb. The human was pushing a wheeled bucket across the reflective floors of Titan Station's docking bay, humming something the translator identified as classic rock, whatever that means. He wore a uniform the color of overcooked vegetables, his name stitched crookedly across the chest pocket. His job title? Environmental Maintenance Specialist. Translation: he cleaned up other people's messes for minimum wage. I was stationed on Titan Station as part of a routine inspection. The humans had been accepted into the Federation exactly 3 standard cycles ago, and honestly, most of us were still skeptical. These creatures had barely figured out faster-than-light travel. They still used something called money to distribute resources. Primitive didn't even begin to cover it. The alarm started screaming at 0900 hours. Now, you need to understand something about Titan Station. It is the largest human outpost in their solar system, home to approximately 15,000 souls, and equipped with defense systems that could, theoretically, hold off a small invasion force. Theoretically being the key word here. The ship that materialized just beyond the defense perimeter was not small. I was in the command center when it happened, standing next to Captain Helena Voss, a human with precisely 0 sense of humor and approximately 900 hours of combat simulation training. She went pale, which for humans indicates extreme stress or impending cardiovascular failure. "What in the actual hell is that?" she whispered, staring at the view screen. The vessel was a dreadnought-class Vorten warship. For context, the Vortens are not the diplomatic type. They are the show up, demand tribute, obliterate you if you refuse type. This particular ship was 12 kilometers long, bristling with enough weaponry to crack a small moon, and it was currently sitting there like a predator watching its prey stumble around in confusion. The communications officer, a young man named Dennis Park, was frantically cycling through every frequency. "They're not responding to standard hails, Captain." "Wait, something's coming through now." The voice that filled the command center sounded like gravel being crushed in a fusion reactor. "Human station. We seek the commander. Surrender him immediately, or your settlement will be reduced to component atoms in 6 of your minutes." 6 minutes. Fantastic. Just fantastic. Captain Voss looked around the room like she expected someone to materialize with answers. "Commander?" "What commander? We don't have anyone with that designation on this station." I could have told her that arguing with Vortens was about as productive as explaining quantum mechanics to a decorative plant, but she was learning that on her own. 5 minutes, the Vorten voice announced helpfully. The command center descended into controlled pandemonium. People were shouting coordinates, rerouting power, charging weapons that everyone knew would be about as effective as throwing pebbles at a freight transport. I found myself experiencing what humans call stress, which is deeply unpleasant and I do not recommend it. That's when Dennis did something either brilliant or catastrophically stupid. He activated the station-wide intercom. "Attention all personnel. If anyone holds the rank or title of commander, please report to the command center immediately. This is not a drill. We have 4 minutes and 30 seconds before a really big alien ship turns us into space dust." The silence that followed was deafening. Then, from somewhere in the lower decks, a voice crackled through someone's open comm line. This is Webb from Janitorial. I heard the announcement. My buddy Dave used to call me Commander because I organized the supply closet by efficiency rating, but I don't think that's what you're looking for." Captain Voss grabbed her comm unit so hard I thought she might crush it. "Webb, get to the command center. Now. Run." 3 minutes, 45 seconds. I watched the doors like my life depended on it, which it absolutely did. The human called Marcus Webb burst through them exactly 97 seconds later, slightly out of breath, still holding a cleaning solution spray bottle in one hand. He had the build of someone who lifted heavy things for a living, but his eyes held the unmistakable look of a man who had no idea why everyone was staring at him. "I ran the whole way," he panted. "What's going on? Is this about the spill on Deck 7? Because technically that wasn't my fault, the recycling system malfunctioned and—" "Are you a commander?" Captain Voss interrupted, her voice reaching frequencies I didn't know human vocal cords could produce. Marcus blinked. "I mean, Dave calls me that sometimes as a joke, but—" 2 minutes, the Vorten voice reminded us, because apparently they were very punctual about their genocidal deadlines. The view screen suddenly shifted, showing the interior of the Vorten ship. The creature that appeared was 7 feet tall, covered in chitinous armor plates, with 6 eyes arranged in a way that made my translator implant hurt just looking at it. This was Warlord Krenth, if my database was correct, and if Warlord Krenth was here personally, things were even worse than I thought. Those 6 eyes focused on the command center feed. They scanned past Captain Voss, past me, past Dennis and the entire tactical crew. They stopped on Marcus Webb. Every single eye went wide. Warlord Krenth, terror of the outer spiral, conqueror of 43 worlds, the creature who once bit off his own lieutenant's head during a disagreement about lunch, dropped to what I can only describe as a kneeling position. "Commander," Krenth said, and his voice carried a reverence I had never heard from a Vorten. "Forgive us. We did not know. We were not certain. The readings were unclear, but now, your presence confirms everything." Marcus looked down at his cleaning uniform, then back at the screen, then at Captain Voss, then at his spray bottle like it might contain answers. "I think there's been a mistake," he said slowly, carefully, like he was explaining something to a particularly confused child. "I clean floors. I empty trash receptacles. Last week I spent 4 hours scrubbing recycled protein paste off a wall. I'm not whoever you think I am." The Vorten's facial plates shifted in what my translator suggested was extreme concern. "But the ship recognized you, Commander. The Eternal Sentinel responded to your proximity. It has been dormant for 8,000 cycles, waiting. We came as soon as the awakening signal reached us." "What ship?" Marcus asked, looking around like maybe there was another ship he'd somehow missed. Krenth gestured with one massive claw. On the view screen, the space behind the Vorten dreadnought seemed to shimmer, and then something uncloaked. I felt my respiratory systems forget how to function. The vessel that appeared made the Vorten dreadnought look like a child's toy. It was ancient, elegant, constructed from materials that predated most current civilizations. And it was glowing with energy signatures that were lighting up every sensor on Titan Station like a festival display. "The Eternal Sentinel," Krenth said with something approaching worship in his voice. "Flagship of the First Fleet. Command ship of the Great Alliance. Lost after the Cataclysm War, 8 millennia ago. Our histories say only one of pure bloodline can wake it from slumber. Only the true commander." Marcus Webb, who made approximately 18 credits per hour cleaning up after space travelers, stared at the impossible ship. "Okay," he said finally. "Okay. So, hypothetically, let's say I am somehow connected to this ship. Hypothetically. Why would an ancient superweapon respond to a guy who literally spent this morning unclogging a toilet?" That's when the ship itself decided to answer. A voice filled the command center, warm and ancient and carrying harmonics that made every piece of technology in the room resonate in sympathy. "Genetic markers confirmed. Neural pattern match verified. Welcome home, Commander. I have been waiting for you." The lights on Titan Station flickered. Every screen, every display, every piece of equipment with a visual interface suddenly showed the same symbol, an elegant design that my database identified as the crest of the First Alliance, the coalition that had united the galaxy before recorded history. Captain Voss sat down heavily in her command chair. "Webb," she said weakly. "Marcus. I'm going to need you to explain how a janitor from Denver, Colorado has genetic markers that match an 8,000-year-old alien dynasty. Marcus looked at her, looked at me, looked at the Vorten warlord still kneeling on the view screen, and looked at the spray bottle he was still holding. "Ma'am," he said very carefully, "I grew up in foster care. I have no idea who my parents were. My DNA records got lost in a system crash when I was 7. And up until about 3 minutes ago, the most exciting thing in my life was finding a working vending machine that didn't steal my credits." The Sentinel's voice returned, patient and pleased. "Commander, your lineage has been preserved through careful intervention across multiple generations. Your ancestors were hidden, protected, their bloodline maintained until the galaxy would need you again. That time has arrived." "Why?" Marcus asked, and I had to admire his directness even in the face of galaxy-shattering revelations. "Why now? What's so special about now?" Warlord Krenth and I exchanged a look. The Vorten's expression, if I was reading it correctly through the species barrier, suggested he also didn't know and was very uncomfortable about that fact. The Sentinel's reply sent chills through my sensory organs. "The enemy has returned, Commander. The force that destroyed the First Alliance. The darkness that consumed entire sectors. It slept as I slept. It waited as I waited. And now it comes again, spreading through the outer territories, converting species, corrupting worlds. The younger races call it the Blight. We called it the end of all things." Marcus set down his spray bottle on a nearby console very carefully. "And you think I can stop it," he said. "Me? A janitor? You are not just a janitor, Commander. You are the heir to the greatest military mind the galaxy has ever known. The blood of Admiral Tethys runs in your veins. The tactical genius that united 1,000 species, that commanded fleets beyond counting, that sacrificed everything to give the galaxy a future. That genius is your birthright." The human looked at his hands like he was seeing them for the first time. Captain Voss cleared her throat. "Webb. Marcus, what do you want to do?" And that's when I saw it. That moment when something shifted behind Marcus Webb's eyes. When the man who cleaned floors and emptied waste receptacles made a decision that would alter the course of galactic history. He looked up at the screen, at the massive ship waiting for him, at the Vorten warlord, at all of us watching him. "I want," he said slowly, "to see my ship." The shuttle ride to the Eternal Sentinel was, without question, the most surreal experience of my entire career. And remember, I once witnessed a Kaltorian dignitary accidentally declare war on his own reflection, so the bar was already pretty high. Marcus sat across from me, still wearing that hideous janitorial uniform, bouncing his knee in a way that indicated severe anxiety. Captain Voss had insisted on accompanying us, along with a security detail of 6 heavily armed humans who looked like they were ready to shoot the first thing that moved wrong. Warlord Krenth had sent his own delegation, 3 Vorten warriors who kept glancing at Marcus like he might spontaneously transform into some sort of divine being. "So," Marcus said, breaking the silence. "Anyone else feel like this is completely insane, or is it just me?" "It is definitely insane," I replied, appreciating his directness. "For the record, I have filed 17 emergency reports with the Federation Council in the last 30 minutes, and not one has been acknowledged. I suspect they think I am having a neurological episode." Captain Voss was reading something on a data pad, her expression suggesting she had moved past shock and arrived firmly in the territory of grim determination. "I pulled your personnel file, Webb. Says here you've been working on Titan Station for 2 years. Before that, you did maintenance on Mars Colony 7. Before that, sanitation work on Earth. You're 32 years old, no living relatives, no criminal record, and your performance reviews are, actually pretty excellent." "I take pride in my work," Marcus said with a slight smile. "You'd be amazed how much engineering knowledge you pick up when you're responsible for keeping environmental systems running. Last month I diagnosed a filtration problem that 3 actual engineers missed." The shuttle's pilot, a woman named Lieutenant Kai Reeves, spoke up from the cockpit. Commander, we are approaching the Sentinel. Requesting docking clearance. Everyone paused. Then Marcus realized she was talking to him. Oh. Yes. Clearance granted. Is that how this works? The ship responded immediately. Clearance confirmed. Welcome aboard, Commander. Extending docking corridor now. The view screen showed the Sentinel up close for the first time, and I had to recalibrate my visual sensors because surely nothing that magnificent could actually exist. The hull was constructed from a material that seemed to shift between solid matter and pure energy, inscribed with patterns that my database identified as mathematical equations describing the fundamental structure of reality itself. Weapons batteries lined the hull, each one containing enough destructive potential to sterilize a continent. And yet, despite its obvious military purpose, there was a beauty to the design that made my translator struggle to find adequate words. It is gorgeous, Marcus whispered, pressing his face against the viewport like a child seeing snow for the first time. I don't know anything about spaceships, but even I can tell this thing is special. We docked with a gentle thud that suggested precision engineering beyond current Federation standards. The airlock cycled, and the door opened to reveal a corridor that seemed to stretch into infinity. The walls glowed with soft blue light, and the air that flowed in smelled faintly of something my olfactory sensors identified as earth vegetation, though that made absolutely no sense. Marcus was the first one through the door. The moment his foot touched the deck plating, the entire corridor blazed with light. A pulse of energy raced away in both directions, and I swear I felt the ship sigh with contentment. Biometric authentication complete, the Sentinel announced. All systems responding to Commander authority. Welcome home, sir. It has been 8,417 years, 6 months, and 12 days since my last commander stood on this deck. I have missed having purpose. You're a sentient AI, Marcus said, looking around in wonder. A real one. Not just programmed responses, but actual consciousness. Correct, Commander. I was constructed by the finest minds of 17 species working in concert. My neural matrices contain the collective knowledge of the First Alliance. My memory banks hold the complete history of the Great War, including tactical data from over 3 million engagements. And right now, I am experiencing something my creators called joy. One of the Vorten warriors made a sound like grinding metal. I recognized it as their version of weeping. Captain Voss stepped forward, her military training overriding her obvious shock. Sentinel, can you explain what's happening? Why now? Why him? The ship's presence seemed to shift, becoming more formal. The Blight has returned. 6 months ago, the first signs appeared in the outer reaches. Entire colonies going silent. Ships disappearing. The pattern matches historical records precisely. The enemy is cautious this time, moving slowly, learning from its previous defeat. But it is coming, and the younger races are unprepared. And you think one human can make a difference? Captain Voss asked, skepticism dripping from every word. No offense, Webb. None taken, Marcus replied. I'm also skeptical. The corridor ahead of us suddenly reconfigured itself, panels sliding aside to reveal a lift platform. Please proceed to the command center, the Sentinel requested. I can better explain there. The lift carried us upward through the ship's interior, and I caught glimpses of hangar bays that could hold entire fleets, medical facilities that looked capable of handling casualties from a dozen different species, living quarters designed for thousands of crew members. This wasn't just a warship. It was a mobile city, a flying fortress, a symbol of everything the First Alliance had achieved. The command center was a circular chamber dominated by a holographic display showing the entire galaxy in real time. Stars flickered and pulsed, trade routes glowed like veins, and in the outer spiral arms, I could see dark patches spreading like disease. Marcus walked to the center of the room, and a chair rose from the floor to meet him. It looked comfortable, which seemed wrong somehow. Shouldn't the seat of galactic power be more intimidating? Sit, Commander, the sentinel urged gently. Let me show you what I see. Marcus sat. The moment he did, the holographic display exploded with information. Tactical overlays, resource allocations, fleet positions, diplomatic channels, everything a military commander would need flooded the space around us. And I watched Marcus Webb, janitor, orphan, minimum wage employee, absorb it all with eyes that suddenly looked far older than 32 years. I understand this, he said quietly, wonderingly. I don't know how, but I understand all of it. The supply lines, the defensive positions, the weak points in Federation space. It's like reading a book I've already memorized. Genetic memory, the Sentinel explained. Your ancestor encoded her knowledge into your bloodline at the molecular level. Normally it remains dormant, but my presence activates those pathways. You are remembering things you never learned, Commander. You are becoming what you were always meant to be. Warlord Krent stepped forward, his massive form somehow managing to look humble. Commander, the Vorten Empire places itself at your disposal. We remember the old alliances. Our grandmothers told stories of the First Fleet, of Admiral Tethys who treated all species with honor. If you will have us, we will fight beside you again. Marcus looked at the Vorten warlord, then at Captain Voss, then at me. I spent this morning cleaning toilets, he said, and laughed, a slightly hysterical edge to the sound. Yesterday I was worried about making rent. And now I'm supposed to save the galaxy from some ancient evil that destroys civilizations. Yes, the Sentinel said simply. That is precisely what you are supposed to do. What if I say no? Marcus asked. What if I just want to go back to my normal life? The holographic display zoomed in on the dark patches spreading through the galaxy. Then approximately 4 billion sentient beings will die in the next standard year, the Sentinel replied with brutal honesty. The Blight converts organic matter into more of itself. It corrupts technology, turning ships and stations into weapons. It spreads through communication networks, through trade routes, through every connection that binds civilizations together. The younger races have encountered it 17 times in the past 6 months. 17 times, they have barely survived. They do not yet understand what they face. Marcus was quiet for a long moment, staring at those dark patches. Then he asked the question I had been dreading. Why did the First Alliance fall? If Admiral Tethys was so brilliant, if this ship is so powerful, how did you lose? The Sentinel's voice carried a weight of ancient sorrow. We won, Commander. We drove the Blight back, contained it, sealed it away. But the cost was total. 98% of Alliance forces were lost. Entire species went extinct. Worlds burned. And Admiral Tethys made the final sacrifice, using a weapon that destroyed both the Blight Central Intelligence and herself. I went into hibernation, damaged beyond my ability to self-repair, waiting for the day when her bloodline would return and the cycle would begin again. That's horrifying, Marcus said flatly. You're telling me the best-case scenario is I give up everything, fight a war that might take years, and possibly die in the process. Yes, the Sentinel confirmed. I will not lie to you, Commander. The path ahead is difficult. But you will not walk it alone. I have already sent activation signals to 18 other ships hidden throughout the galaxy. The First Fleet is awakening. And the species who remember the old ways are already responding. As if to emphasize the point, the communications panel lit up with incoming messages. Dozens of them. Hundreds. Species I had never heard of, sending pledges of support, offering ships and troops and resources. Captain Voss was reading the messages, her eyes growing wider. Webb, this is, half the Federation is losing its mind right now. 3 planetary governments just offered full military support. The Keltorian matriarchy wants to send their entire temple fleet. Even the silicates are responding, and they haven't talked to anyone in 400 years. Marcus stood up from the command chair, pacing around the holographic display. Okay. Let's say I do this. Let's say I accept this insane responsibility. I don't know how to command a fleet. I've never led anything more complicated than a cleaning rotation schedule. You know more than you think, the Sentinel said. Trust your instincts, Commander. Trust the knowledge awakening inside you. And trust that I will guide you when needed. We are partners in this, you and I. I watched Marcus process this, saw the moment when acceptance settled over his features. It wasn't dramatic. There was no heroic speech. He just nodded, like he had made a decision about which supplies to order for the janitorial department. All right, he said. I'll do it. But I have conditions. Warlord Krenth looked confused. Conditions, Commander. First, nobody dies if I can help it. I don't care what the history books say about acceptable losses. Every person matters. Second, we evacuate civilians first, always. Third, I want full transparency with the Federation Council. No secrets, no hidden agendas. And fourth. He paused, a slight smile crossing his face. I want hazard pay. Because I'm pretty sure this is outside my normal job description. Captain Voss laughed, a sound of pure relief. I think we can arrange that, Commander Webb. The Sentinel's voice carried warmth and approval. Your ancestor would be proud, Commander. She always valued life above glory. We will honor your conditions. Marcus looked around the command center one more time, then straightened his shoulders. Okay then. Sentinel, show me everything. Every dark patch, every missing ship, every anomaly. If we're doing this, we're doing it right. And somebody please get me out of this uniform. If I'm going to command a fleet, I should probably look the part. As the holographic display reconfigured to show detailed tactical information, I realized something profound. The galaxy had just changed. Marcus Webb, janitor, orphan, ordinary human, had just accepted the weight of billions of lives on his shoulders. And somehow, watching him study those star charts with growing confidence, I believed he might actually succeed. The Vorten warriors were already kneeling. Captain Voss stood at attention. Even I found myself straightening with respect. Sentinel, Marcus said, his voice carrying new authority. Send a message to all responding forces. Tell them Commander Webb is assuming command of First Fleet operations. Tell them we stand together, like the old days. Tell them the fight begins now. Message sent, Commander, the Sentinel replied. Welcome to your destiny. Marcus looked at me then, and grinned. Still think this is insane? Absolutely, I replied. But perhaps that is exactly what the galaxy needs right now. And as the Eternal Sentinel began powering up systems that hadn't functioned in 8 millennia, as pledge after pledge of support flooded in from across known space, I couldn't help but think that sometimes the most extraordinary heroes come from the most ordinary places. After all, he was just a janitor. But the galaxy was about to learn that sometimes, that's exactly enough.